This is the next video in the Chaos Magick series, and this video is going to focus on sigils in Chaos Magic. You'll find the link for the series at the end of this video. But first, I want to be clear about what type of sigils we'll be discussing. See, there are sigils that represent beings such as angels or daemons. These types of sigils, also known as seals, have different methods of creation and handling. Then there are sigils for servitors. I will actually be doing a separate video as part of the series that talks all about servitors and the sigils that are created for them. But for this video, I will not be addressing sigils for angels, daemons, or servitors. My sole focus will be on sigils created for a goal or intent that a magician or witch is wanting to achieve. So why are sigils such a prominent method in Chaos Magic? The answer to this goes back to the view of the subconscious in Chaos Magic. It's believed the secret to influencing the subconscious lies in the use of symbols. More specifically, symbols operate at a point halfway between the conscious and subconscious levels. Sigils drift between the two levels of consciousness, creating a bridge between the rational, logical mind and the symbolic, magical subconscious. Sigilization is a desire or intent made into an obscured form that doesn't immediately bring to mind the original goal. Sigils are composed of letters, the language of the conscious mind, that's formed into a pattern, the language of the subconscious mind. Your goal is put into a statement, and the letters are scrambled or eliminated in order to form a picture, mantra, tune, buzzword, what have you. During gnosis, the sigil is charged, cast, and forgotten. Remember, forgetting helps to avoid the lust of result situation. If you don't remember what that is, that's when the desire and lust for the goal to happen is what's on your mind, and you dwell and possibly even obsess over it. That keeps your goal or intent in the forefront of your conscious mind, and it robs the subconscious of the ability to act on it. Forgetting what you just did can often be the hardest part of the process. The fact of the matter is, though, you need to forget what you want in order for the subconscious to get to work on your desire. Sigils can be used in conjunction with planetary or other magical symbols and rituals, or just used on its own. That simplicity is the beauty of sigils. Most of you will recognize this basic method, as many utilize it outside of Chaos Magic as well. This method was developed by Austin Osman Spare during the early part of the 20th century. It was just one of several elements of his Zos Kia cultus. We'll go more into depth into the concept of Kia in a future video. You first write out your statement of your goal or desire. Try to keep your statement short, simple, but clear in your intent. From the sentence, you can choose to use all the letters as is, or you can progress to eliminating all vowels and repeating consonants. So, as an example, let's say you need a ride to a party. Your sentence could be, I have a ride to the party. Using the method above, I'll take out repeating consonants and all the vowels. With the remaining letters, put them together to form an image. There's no rule that says you have to use them right side up or you have to use each letter separately. This leaves some flexibility in your design. For example, you can consider an M also as an upside down W or on its side as an E. In our example, the P can also be seen in the R. So can the D. You've basically killed 3 birds with 1 stone with the R image. You can also use the basic shapes of each letter. This is essentially the curves and straight lines that make up a letter. So, for example, a D would look like this. This would be an A, and this is what a Q would look like. Your image can be created freeform, or you can use a grid. Grids tend to be more used when using the separate lines and curves. Here are some examples of some sigils I've done. This one uses the methods of lines and curves on an X and Y axis. This one uses a combination of letters, lines, and curves, and this one is a basic design of letters. Some people choose to use magic squares, sigil wheels, or other types of grids that they can use to connect the letters, which creates an image. You can use any table or grid of your choosing. You can make a magic square of your own to use. It's actually pretty simple. Draw a grid made up of 3 rows and 3 columns of boxes. Write out the numbers 1 through 9 on a single line, followed by the alphabet on the next line, so that each letter of the alphabet corresponds to a number. Using the statement from earlier, I have a ride to the party on Friday, you'll take those numbers and connect through all the numbered squares that correspond to the letters. If you have more than one letter to a number, you could just use that number once. By the way, when using grids such as these, chaots usually use a circle to mark the beginning and a short straight line to mark the end. In addition to grids, you can actually also generate your sigil online. Here's a sigil created by an online generator of the statement, I have a ride to the party on Friday. Just do a Google search for a sigil creator and you can find one of these. It really doesn't matter what it looks like as long as it's not too complex. Remember, you have to be able to visualize it throughout the working. You can decorate it or even draw a border around it, such as a triangle, square, circle, or whatever you think is appropriate. This is completely up to you. You can see on some of my sigils, I've enhanced them with runes or other decor. Some have borders and some don't. To transform it into a magically potent image, you'll need to charge it using the various forms of gnosis and sleight of mind techniques described in the previous video on gnosis. In addition to the basic method, there's actually a number of other methods that people have developed over the years. Mudra sigils are hand gestures. These can be a gesture per letter or a series of gestures representing the sigil. Asana sigils use the whole body, with body postures instead of just hand gestures. A variation on the mantric sigil, which we'll talk about in a second, is the spinning mantra. With this, you put your emphasis on the second and fourth syllables of each line. If you're in a group, you can take turns saying part of your statement, each emphasizing the same syllable. The rhythm, speed, and enthusiasm from this kind of mantra can have a different effect on the thought process. This requires some practice before you can use it ritually, as you don't want to have to focus on reading or thinking how to say it. Your actual focus should be on achieving gnosis. You can also use tunes as sigils. These sigils use the same basic concept as a regular phrased sigil, but instead of turning it into a kind of image, you turn it into a melody. You'll need to decide if you're going to use a simple scale, whole notes only, no sharps or flats, or a full scale with whole notes, sharps, and flats. With mantric sigils, these can be used in chanting. You can create a sequence of sounds or syllables from your statement that you repeat again and again. Chant the word or phrase throughout your working or ritual. Add additional vowels if you need to make it easier to say. Acoustic sigils, or more specifically electroacoustic sigils, do require you to have some sort of tone generating software, one that you can input hertz and amplitude. So if you're techie, this method may be for you. You'll devise a scale to convert the alphabet to hertz, which is cycles per second. So for example, A could equal 20 hertz, B 40 hertz, C 60 hertz, and so on. Before generating the sigil tone, though, you'll want to divide 100 by the amount of the letters in your prepared statement. This number tells you the max amplitude to use when generating each tone of the sigil, which will be how loud it is. You'll then program the different tones with their respective hertz value and your determined amplitude. For the length of each tone, 1 second is pretty standard. Each 1 second tone for each letter then should be laid on top of each other so that all the tones will play at once. Once you've finished all the values, you will have a 1 second long complex tone. You'll want to save the file, preferably with a title that doesn't give away its purpose. You can play the sample, loop it, leave it running. You can also transfer it to your phone or other device so you can take it anywhere with you to play in the background when you're falling asleep, so on. Hypersigils are actually the brainchild of Grant Morrison, a comics writer and well-known chaos magician. He feels the concept of sigils can be incorporated directly into his writing through the creation of what he refers to as hypersigils. Morrison defines hypersigils as a practice that develops the sigil concept beyond the static image and incorporates elements such as characterization, drama, and plot. The hypersigil is a sigil that extends through the fourth dimension, becoming something larger than life. In his case, both in the form of fictional universes and of published works, versus a standard sigil which represents one image and one idea. In other words, these fictional stories are believed by Morrison to have a literal effect on reality. He adds himself into his comics for the events happening to his character to happen to him in reality. This is a lofty goal for the average magician, but if you're a creative soul, creating a hypersigil might be a long-term goal for you. An alphabet of desire is a set of personal magical symbols that describe or trigger aspects of the magician's personality. Generally, like most sigils, alphabets of desires are image-based, but they can really be any of the other types we discussed earlier. The construction of an alphabet of desire can be developed formally or organically just through repetition or natural tendencies. It's also not necessary to define the elements outside of the ritual space. The conscious mind doesn't have to know the meanings of the alphabet since it's both created and used during altered states of consciousness. Each letter represents a power or energy that the magician wants to recognize within his deep psyche. In essence, the sorcerer sigilizes a desire, then uses automatic drawing until an ideograph is created. Letters from this alphabet can be combined to form a sigil, or it can even be made into the shape of a servitor, again using techniques of automatic drawing. Now, I'd like to go over with you a very special sigil that's been well known in the Chaos Magic circle for a few decades. There is a sigil that over the past few decades has been used so much it ultimately transformed into a servitor and, according to some chaos magicians, is now believed to have evolved into an egregore of sorts, and that is Fotamecus. Fotamecus was initially a sigil used to alter time. After its creation, it was later released on the internet. It's believed, through its use by literally hundreds of users around the globe, that it was enough to eventually push him over the border into egregorehood, beyond the control of any one individual. Photomachus is diametrically opposed to Chronos, adopting a model of time that's flexible instead of fixed. Photomachus was originally created in the spring of '96 by Fenwick Risen when he was showing a friend some sigilization techniques. His friend ended up keeping the scratch paper Risen used for the demo, and he tried using it while he was driving. Later, he and another friend focused on the intent of forcing time into compression as they directed energy at it. Shortly after, it was at a Metallica concert where Photomachus crossed over from sigil to servitor. Rice and his friend realized that the whole crowd engulfed in the concert was experiencing a state of gnosis. They decided to channel the crowd and, on the drive back, they dumped the excess energy into Photomachus. They ended up making it home in half the time it should have taken. On a following road trip, he decided to put Photomachus to the test. Mind you, this was a van with 7 chaos magicians. The group directed energy at Photomachus to assist with shortening the drive time. They checked the time at the beginning, and after 50 miles, checked the time again and saw only 15 minutes had gone by. A second car traveling with them had long disappeared behind them. The group ended up stopping and hung out and wasted time for about 45 minutes. They got back on the road and shortly met up with the other car who had never made a stop. There was one side effect, however, that was discovered, and that was that for time to compress, it also has to expand at some other point in time. Ryson got some of his friends and did some work on Photomachus to make him a viral servitor. They made him essentially able to make copies of himself. They tied these copies together into a network so that if one compresses time but doesn't want to expand it, it passes off the expansion piece to another Photomachus servitor in the network. They all work together, and the more copies out there, the better it works. The word Photomachus itself is the original mantric sigil that this was created from. So, in addition to focusing visually on the sigil image, you can chant the mantric sigil Fotamecus. So how do you use this? You can either use a writing utensil to draw, or you can extend your forefinger and trace in the air in front of you the sigil of Fotamecus. At the same time you draw the sigil, visualize a beam of octarine light, which is a fluorescent greenish yellow purple color, coming from your third eye to trace the sigil. Use Fotamecus by focusing on the sigil, sending it as much or as little energy as you like, along with the intent to either compress or expand time. Let Fotamecus know what he should do with balancing out the expanded time. For example, if he expands time for you, ask him to compress it the next time you drive somewhere. If he compressed time initially, ask him to expand it the next morning, giving you more time to get up. Or you could just ask him to pass off the expansion or compression to another servitor in the viral chain to let someone else use it. After charging, though, don't dwell on it. Photomicus seems to work best when you've forgotten he's even there. Probably the best image to represent Photomicus is a clock being crushed or smashed. Clocks work on the premise that time is stable and measurable. Photomicus works on the premise that time is unstable and malleable. According to Ryzen, Photomicus's personality is easygoing and casual, probably because his parents were seven friendly college-age chaots on a road trip. As you can see, there's so much more to sigils and sigil making than what most people are aware of.
As you can see, there's so much more to sigils and sigil making than what most are aware of. These methods are certainly not for everyone, but if chaos magic is an interest to you, I encourage you to try your hand at some of the many variations of sigil creation and utilization. If you use any of these techniques, or if you've created your own, tell us about it in the comments. Thank you once again for watching, and until next time we will see you on the next video.